sister, who were found in a dazed and fearful state. Both the children had green-tinged skin and later claimed to have come from St. Martin's Land, which they described as a place of perpetual twilight. From there, they had followed the sound of bells through a cavern and emerged into the bright sunlight of the world. wish made while kneeling, at first one and then the other, and that the wish will come true so long as it is never spoken aloud. While they lack the sanctity and modern infrastructure that is built up around the well within the shrine, these wells, framed by medieval ruins, have a more authentic appeal. Okay, so this picture on the right is Wandlebury Ring in Cambridgeshire. An early medieval legend tells of a ghostly black knight who could be encountered at Wandlebury Ring, Hillfort, on moonlit nights if he entered the fort alone and called out, "Knight, knight, come forth and fight." His ghostly form would appear and challenge you to a duel. This huge Iron Age ring fort just outside Cambridge is now a country park and a popular destination for day trippers. The southern edge of the interior is now occupied by 17th century and later buildings, but the overgrown forested ramparts still retain an air of magic and mystery. Wandlebury Ring lies in the Gog and Magog Hills, whose three peaks were said to have been created when the giant Gog, who lived in a cave nearby, had an argument with his wife Magog. He threw three huge clods of earth at her, which formed the three hills: Telegraph Clump, Little Trees Hill, and Wandlebury Hill, where Wandlebury Ring is now found. There was once thought to have been a giant chalk hill figure carved into Wandlebury Hill, who perhaps represented the giant Gog. He may have been similar in style to the one at Cerne Abbas. Oh, that's strange. Let's see what that is. So that's number 14, which is over here. So it's Hemlock Stone in Stapleford, Nottinghamshire. This huge and strangely twisted sandstone column was said to have been thrown by the devil from Castleton in Derbyshire. He was aiming at Lenton Priory, but missed his target. The tale could also be linked to the memory of a prehistoric trackway known as the Portway that once ran from Mamtor near Peak Cavern all the way to the Hemlock Stone. The trackway could have had ritual significance as it passed by several other sacred sites such as Router Rocks and Nine Stones Close. The Druids were once believed to have gathered at the Hemlock Stone to perform rituals, and until the beginning of the 19th century fires were kindled there to on Beltane Eve. The stone itself is now surrounded by iron railings and overlooks a busy road into Nottingham. Now that's curious. That's 12. It's called Braunston in Rutland Goddess at Rutland. A curious carved stone statue depicting a bare-breasted female figure with protruding tongue and eyes stands by the wall of All Saints Church in Braunston in Rutland. The stone was in use entrance is called Peak Cavern in Castleton. Let's read about that. The entrance to Peak Cavern lies at the end of a short but dramatic gorge, its towering cliffs hung with mosses and ferns, known alternatively as the Devil's Arse. Hilarious. The cavern was once seen as an entrance to the underworld. At the base of the cliffs, beneath the cave entrance, a stream emerges directly from this underworld and flows along the length of the gorge, following the excavation of a nearby spring, which flows into this stream. Hundreds of offerings from Celtic times were found, including complete stone head that can be seen in the local museum. According to a curious 12th century tale, one winter, a man searching for his pregnant sow near the entrance to Peak Cavern stepped inside the cave. He suddenly found himself in a strange but beautiful land, where the harvest was just being gathered. There he found his sow, which had just given birth to piglets. So he guided her out the cave, only to find himself back in winter's chill at the cave entrance. Today, Peak Cavern is a popular show cave, but it was said that in medieval times prisoners from Peveril Castle, which sits directly above it, would sometimes be incarcerated in the cave, further adding to its sinister reputation. I think we've got another cave entrance there, so that is the Thirst House Cave at Chelmorton. The deep, wooded clefts of Deepdale was once thought to be a favourite haunt of the Derbyshire fairy folk. One cave in particular, known as the Thirst House Cave, was home to a hob who would assist with the farm chores or cause havoc if offended in some way. Hobhurst, as he was known, was guardian of the spring that emerged into the valley there. Each Good Friday, it was said the hob would enchant the waters, so those who came to quench their thirst would be cured of any afflictions. The mouth of Thirst House Cave is visible from the path through the valley below and can be reached by a short, steep path. The cave soon descends into mysterious dark depths, while the entrance presents a perfectly framed view across the wooded Derbyshire valley. And then here, this strange configuration are worn cliff crags. Hidden in a dense woodland of twisted trees with craggy outcrops, the range of imposing great cliffs, known as Warncliffe Crags, lies on the western edge of Warncliffe Chase, a medieval royal hunting park set on a plateau above the cliffs. The crags were once said to have been inhabited by a troublesome dragon known as the Dragon of Wantley, who lived in a cave still known as the Dragon's Den. Legend tells that the dragon was eventually dispatched by a knight wearing spiked armour, who landed the mortal blow by kicking the dragon up the backside. Fancy. Today the area is popular with hikers and rock climbers, and the successful birth, she was paid handsomely in fairy gold and returned home. After smearing the ointment on her eye, she had the power to see the fairies, and one market day she noticed the fairy father stealing apples from a stall. When she approached him, the fairy demanded to know which eye she had seen him with, and touched it. The spell was instantly broken, and the midwife never saw the fairies again. Whitewell is located in the forest of Bowland, a rural farming area with clusters of tiny stone-built settlements overlooked by windswept fells and wooded valleys, called cloughs, with tumbling rivers and streams. Many fairy traditions are associated with the area, including at Dinkling Green, near Whitewell, where fairies were seen dancing on the white stone, only to disappear down holes in the ground. The exact location of this stone is unknown, but the limestone landscape provides plenty of hiding places for the little folk. According to local legend, a fairy oak tree once stood nearby that was a focus for midsummer revelry. Meanwhile, a couple of kilometres to the south, fairy washerwomen were seen at work in the waters of Leagram Brook, which runs through Buckbanks Wood. Near Bashall Eaves, an ancient stone bridge with magical associations crosses Bashall Brook. Trailhead, Saddle Bridge, was created by fairies in a single night to save an old woodcutter who was being chased by witches, hence its alternative name, the Fairy Bridge. So, number 5 is Cottingley Beck in West Yorkshire. While Britain was dealing with the trauma of World War I, 2 young girls brought some welcome magic by publishing photos of fairies they'd seen playing in the woods around Cottingley Beck, not far from their home. The photographs caused a sensation, and experts from Kodak couldn't see how they had been faked, especially by 2 youngsters, and declared them genuine. Controversy, however, dogged the story and the 2 photographers, now elderly women, admitted they'd faked them using drawings stuck on hat pins. However, Frances Griffiths, the younger of the 2, maintained until the end of her life that the 5th and final photo, taken in 1920, was not a fake. In this image, titled Fairies and Their Sunbath, ethereal fairy women are seen in a nest-like enclosure of grasses and flowers. In addition to fairies and wood elves, the girls also saw little men dressed in green around the waterfalls at the beck. Cottingley Beck now flows behind a modern housing estate to the south of the village, and this little patch of wilderness, amid the development, can only be reached by scrambling down beside a bridge that provides access to the estate. In recognition of the story, some of the estate's roads were named after the fairies in Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. The original photographic prints and cameras used by the girls are on display in Bradford's National Science and Media Museum. this curtain of flowstone, there is a cave, and at one end of it, clear water flows into a natural basin where people make wishes. On the opposite bank of the river are two of the oldest medieval cave shrines in the country. The first, St. Robert's Cave, is now dark, empty and abandoned, but served as his hermitage, and the layout of a small chapel in the rock outside the cave is still visible. The second is the shrine of Our Lady of the Crag, which features a life-size effigy of a knight carved into the exterior rock next to an ornate window and doorway. The cave was said to have been hewn out of the rock by a stonemason in recognition and thanks for the divine intervention that resulted in his son surviving a huge rockfall. Unfortunately, the chapel is seldom open, but the exterior can be admired from the peaceful garden. Now next is So I was looking for this one, number 16, Rudston Monolith, which I think must be on this page. And yet I can't find the 16. That's strange. It's disappeared. So we've got 13, 14, 15. Oh, here we go. Up here, 16, there it is. So Rudston Monolith is in East Yorkshire. Towering over the surrounding gravestones in the village churchyard, the Rudston Monolith is the tallest standing stone in Britain at 7.6 metres. Local legend says the devil threw the monolith at the church, but it fell short and embedded itself in the ground. He really likes to throw things around, doesn't he? In fact, the stone stands in its original position and predates the church by centuries. Rudston, the village's name, may be derived from the Old English rood stone, meaning cross stone, which suggests a crucifix may have been attached to the top of the monolith to Christianise the site of ancient pagan sanctuary. Beneath the trees, in a quiet corner of the churchyard, lies a prehistoric stone-lined cist grave and a small standing stone, while the remains of several ancient earthworks lead towards the monolith, indicating its ancient significance. A number of ley lines are said to pass through or end at Rudston Monolith, connecting the site to other ancient and sacred places such as Willie Howe. The stone remains an impressive and ancient presence in the landscape. North Yorkshire moors. So here is Boggle Hole, Robin Hood's Bay. A small sea cave in the cliffs of Boggle Hole was once home to a boggle, a spirit of place much like a hob, only more mischievous. When angered, they are liable to harm people or damage their property. Boggle Hole is reached by a steep path leading down to a tiny inlet and beach. The cave itself is accessible from the beach only at low tide, and once provided a convenient place for smugglers to stash their loot. Nearby, the Boggle Hole Youth Hostel has pictures and information Hob Holes, Brunswick Bay. So let's read